The big topic this week has been the WannaCry ransomware that's been going around. I wrote a blog post about it um, at Tie Online, but I would like to finish this week with a video commentary. I think that a lot of people might believe that sometimes these security scares are scares and they're not real or they won't affect them, and they'll be like, yeah, the entire UK health system was attacked, but we're not in the UK, we're not on the health system, we're fine. That's a really bad way to look at these things. People who do jobs like I do, we tend to definitely be a little bit more safety conscious and paranoid because we know what happens if these things get out of control. We've seen the loss. I've seen an entire organization's email be wiped out, all of it, the entire history of their email. And this was pre cloud, and it was about 8 years worth of content. So they were doing what you're not supposed to do and storing all their files in their email. Unrecoverable. So at a certain point, after you do this type of job, director of technology or director of compliance or director of security, something like that, after you do that for a few years, your paranoia and your oversensitivity to possible security problems, it's quite justified. And unless you have that kind of scope of experience and it's really hard for you to understand not only the intellectual approach, but also the emotional repercussions that an organization has, the whole organization has, and how they put all that responsibility back on just a few people. So I do want to review a few things with everyone today so you know that it's not fake, and I'm going to show you in the simplest way that it's not fake and these things are real. And also, I'm just going to review the points that you need to pay attention to and follow to make sure that your organization is secure, even if it's not the greatest conversation to have, and it definitely will not make everyone happy. This is Office 365. You can find this same kind of dashboard in Google Apps for Education. So they're almost exactly the same. They look a little bit different, but this is a report, and this is just showing email, not any other services. And they're from the 12th to the 18th. All right? And this is what we're looking at. Spam content filtered, spam blocked, inbound and outbound. Now, inbound means coming into the organization. Outbound means coming from people inside the organization. For example, on the 12th, we had this many emails coming at us that were potentially containing something bad. It was blocked. I mean, a spam message can just be a message, or it could be a message with a link in it and you click the link and then you get malware. So by following recommended configurations and things that we know we need to do because of where we're located, this is how many inbound messages we dealt with in one day here on the 12th. So I'll just go to the 12th here, right? One day. All right. On the 15th, outbound, 2 messages went out. This means that 2 people in our organization were distributing spam. Now you might be like, that's only 2 people, but what if these people had the malware in an email on their computer? Now they're propagating it back out. This is all it takes. It takes one person internally who's on a group to circulate these things. One person who's connected to a shared drive to circulate these things. All right? Inbound specific malware, 3. Again, we filtered this out. But let's say one makes it through. Just one. That's all it takes. It only takes one. The problem is when someone makes something really clever, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they're not always prepared because it's new. And when it's new, it can get through all of this defense. And you can already see there's at least one person who potentially is going to receive this content. And there's almost 1 to 6 people who are going to share it without thinking. And unfortunately, that's all that it takes to spread network wide. Now, is that actually true? The answer is yes, it's true. But with good policies and procedures, one person can't easily take down your network. So here's my post at the International Educator, and I'm going to go down here and just review these points. Okay. The standard for file storage should be in the cloud. Absolutely. If you're in a situation where you can use Google Apps for Education or Office 365 for education, 95% of everything you do needs to be there. Those cloud-based systems, although they could potentially all be taken down worldwide if the internet goes out, aside from that, those cloud-based systems are managed by professionals. They are managed across the planet, and there are people monitoring them all the time. They have redundancy, and they have experts, the top experts on the planet, available to help defend them. So that's the number one reason to consider using them. The number two reason is that most of these services, unless you contract a special service or set up some kind of software as a service platform, they don't execute anything. So even if a bad file is sitting there, it won't do anything. Unless you can say that your network shares are 100% secure, and there's no way that one person in your organization has permissions that they should not have, then there's no argument. I will say with absolute certainty that if I tell a Microsoft server or a Linux server or an Apple server to take these permissions and properly pass them down to all nested folders and files, that at least 1% of those permissions are never applied correctly, or in the future, an exception is accidentally made when giving a user special access. With 100% certainty, I can say that I cannot ever say that local shares are 100% safe. Next, do not use sync software such as Google Drive Sync or OneDrive Sync. Okay, a few reasons for not doing this. You need to think about this clearly. Your Google Drive and your OneDrive are probably smaller in size than your hard drive, but most people on their hard drive, after you get a new laptop, it might only have 128 GB SSD drive now. That's kind of the standard, smaller, faster drives. So you might only have, with all your software and stuff, let's say you have 30 or 40 GB of storage possible. Well, if your Google Drive is unlimited or over 30 or 40 gigs, it will actually sync beyond your local hardware capacity. So basically it's you have the ability to carry around 10 oranges and Google Drive can hold 20 oranges. And if you turn on the sync and you don't manage it correctly, it's going to try to give you 20 oranges when you can only carry 10. Mistake. Secondly, when you do this sync, if you have any malware on your laptop, it will sync up. Now, let's say Google Drive and OneDrive don't run the malware. If they don't remove it automatically, it will sync to all your computers. And once it syncs to the cloud, it's safe in the cloud. But once it syncs down, now you've infected your other machines. So I don't really like sync for that reason. I don't need it. I work with a lot of files and a lot of media. I drag and drop. It seems to work. All right, laptops given to staff and students should have very small hard drives, discouraging hoarding data and storing old files. Most exploits happen on older systems, and they happen to older software. So if people are always kind of forced to keep their laptops clean and not hoard applications and software, and they're constantly kind of nudged to update, then your risk goes down. Okay, weekly or monthly archiving of data should not be in the same environment as data for daily work. This is a personal and organizational practice that I believe in. So for example, I use Google Drive or I use my OneDrive every day. At the end of the month, I find the most important stuff. I download it to a zip folder, which is easy to do, and I move it to Dropbox for a long-term archive. So I'm not in the Dropbox that much, but Dropbox is my default long-term backup. So if I have a catastrophic failure for some reason in Google Drive or OneDrive, or I just move companies and I lose my share, I've got my items archived. If you're talking about your organization, you need to have a backup that is not part of your organization. You need to have a backup that isn't in your Google, isn't in your OneDrive or Office 365, that's not on your campus. Okay, unless you're doing old school tape backup and those tapes are like put in some kind of fireproof safe. And I'm not against tape backup. I still think it's quite viable for a lot of things. But you can do a sync. You can subscribe to like Amazon Web Services and just use their backup service. It's not that expensive. If you look at it, it's not that expensive. The only expensive part is the first sync. After that, it's not that much because you're setting up a central point that a couple people manage to sync all of the data that has only been updated or changed. You can set up a BitTorrent sync server also in Amazon or some other services. This BitTorrent sync is encrypted. The software itself is free. You're only paying for the bandwidth or the data that you move. And then there's some professional backup services like Carbonite. I think they have a business edition that runs on like Windows servers. I don't know if it runs on Linux, but it probably does. The point is that those services do the same thing. They archive your stuff. They back it up. Now, it's not fast necessarily to get it all back, but it's safe. And in case of a catastrophic failure in your infrastructure, it's not part of your infrastructure. Offline backups on external drives are good, but hardware can fail. This also applies to shared network drives. Anything that you have on your network that is running on a piece of hardware eventually is going to fail. And unless your backup process is perfect, you're going to lose data. Even if you're working with all the data and you decide you're going to move it or migrate it, if you don't do it properly or you make a single mistake, like you forget to calculate something and it causes the data to not actually be able to move because the data is bigger than its destination, or there's some kind of security on the destination that's a higher level than what you're using and it stops some of the data from moving, now you have a huge problem. You can actually corrupt your own data by touching it. The second you interact with something, you change it. So the second you grab the entire organization's data and move it, there's a problem. So hardware can fail. Software can fail. All of this stuff can fail. Putting it all in one place and making it just fast and easy, that's going to fail eventually. And when it fails, it will only fail big. It's never going to fail small. So I do use external hard drives to back up my data, but maybe twice a year. And I actually get new external hard drives every 3 years, even if the other hard drive's working. So that seems a little crazy, but that's actually what I do. Okay, systems like Time Machine can actually corrupt data if they're backing up automatically. Automatic backups or automatic snapshots for day-to-day activity are very, very convenient. But the main problem with these automated backup tools is that if you have malware or something else on your machine that is dangerous and you're not aware of it, then it's going to be backed up without your knowledge into your archive. And the day that you need to actually restore your computer, possibly because of this threat hits you, the only thing you can do is restore your computer. You restore it with the threat intact, and now you're back where you started. So that's why it's better to use the software, use backup software to make your life easier, but initiate it manually after you check your system. Next point, photos and media can be challenging to keep organized in the cloud. This is one of the biggest complaints I hear. And it's true, like some drive sharing, like Google Drive and OneDrive are actually pretty fast, but they're designed for documents first and media second. So when they compress, they don't really compress data, like they don't compress video usually. They just upload it. So if it's 80 MB, when you upload it, it'll be 80 MB. If you're working with storage services that are designed for media, they will move the media faster because they will compress it or run some kind of like algorithm on it to make it, more manageable. The point is that all of your services, like even Office 365, have galleries and stuff designed for handling media. If you mix all your movies and music with all your documents, it's definitely going to be a challenge. But email's not for data storage. So if you want to test that out, try to attach a 20 megabyte file to an email and send it. Probably isn't going to go anywhere. Email is not designed for permanent data storage. If you have cloud services, you can easily share that through links, but let's say you're using a lot of attachments, you receive a lot of attachments. You need to download and organize those, because if email gets wiped out, you have no backup. It's done. So if your email gets wiped out or corrupted, you're going to lose all of your attachments. You're not going to have them anywhere else. I've actually seen this more than I would like to see, and I even see it now in 2017. So email should just be for communication. When you get an attachment, save it, download it, move it, whatever. But you should be able to get back to this data that was in the email without being in the email. Through this, if you're using any kind of local network share or a NAS system like Synology, you need to be vigilant with permissions. Okay? If you planned your sharing so it's based around ease of use, I want it to be as easy as possible. If that was the driving force, then probably your entire network is already compromised, or it's ready to become an engine to spread malware. Okay? Limit non-cloud based data sharing to special groups. There are organizational units that should not be on the cloud, and maybe legally can't be on the cloud. For example, your student information system might have to be hosted locally. It might not be legal to put it in a cloud service. Your accounting system probably needs to be hosted locally. Your human resources hard data, like scans of passports and stuff, probably needs to be hosted locally. But the number of people who access those systems should be very limited, because they're being hosted locally because they have really, really high security standards. So your human resources people, theoretically, never need to send the health people in the nurse's office a copy of somebody's passport. There's no need for that. So they shouldn't even physically be connected. They need to be completely separate. The security should be at such a level that in order for someone in finance to access something for human resources, they should almost have to go through a third party like the IT department to get special temporary permissions. So if the data is that sensitive, and someone's like, oh, our data is so sensitive we can't use the cloud, well, you also can't use ease of use sharing. You can't use that either. It has to be one or the other. All right, so that's my rant for this week on spam, malware, and all the bad, scary stuff on the internet and how to deal with it. You can read my article on TIE Online, which is also linked on IT Babble. And we will be doing a podcast soon, I hope, covering more and more of these issues, especially talking about the aftermath and what potentially is going to happen next, and the rise of ransomware in the last year, which is currently over 700%.